will stop the violence, or the violence will stop you. We're supposed to be making history, not violence. It makes no sense. We family, truly. That one, you are my brother. You hear me? So my town and my country.
Yes, we're back, and we're moving on to the issue of Badia. After the demolition has taken place. From what we understand, on Saturday, 23rd of February, the Lagos State government felt it was necessary to clear out what was thought to be a shanty town that was being created in Badia. And the state governor, as we know, he is extremely passionate in urban renewal and urban regeneration. But the process of making things of this nature happen has got to be sensitive to the communities that are impacted by this renewal and regeneration. The history, from what we gathered, is that the people who are living in Badia were relocated by the federal government almost 40 years ago, just before the National Theatre was built. Around that time, we understand that the federal government said that they wanted to use that location for the National Theatre and Festac 77, I think. And then they moved the people that were resident there to another location now called Badia. And in moving them there, they're supposed to occupy that place and develop it temporarily from what the state government is saying. And nothing has been done ever since. So we now have a shanty town that has grown over the last 40 years, and the people are now being moved out to where we don't know. So for us to know the truth of this issue, let me welcome first Mr. Bosunjeje, who is the Commissioner for Housing in Lagos State. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise.
Good morning. Good morning, viewers.
And then sitting just next to him is Mr. Felix Moka, who is the Executive Director, Social and Economic Rights Action Center, SERAC.
Good morning.
And then on the other side, we've got just sitting next to me is Bimbo Omowale Oshobe, who is a resident in Badia.
Good morning, viewers.
And then sitting beside her is the Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, Mr. Olutoyin Ayinde.
Good morning.
All right. Let us start with, I'm tempted to actually start in terms of the history. Let's get the perspective of the history from the people and their supporter. So I want to talk to the Executive Director of SERAC, Felix Moka. Tell us what you understand as the history of the migration of this community from where they were in Igomu to Badia.
Well, yes, thank you so much. Now, there used to be Oluwole village that existed from time immemorial in Igomu, where the National Theatre grounds now sit. In 1973, the federal government of Nigeria, preparatory to hosting the African Festival of Arts and Culture, Festac, demolished the homes of these people. But before they did that, they informed them, and they actually told them they were relocating them to the present-day Badia, and actually went ahead to demolish their homes and then move them to Badia and resettle them there, gave them permits to live and build their homes, their new lives in Badia. Now that's how come they went there. Now, yes, the federal government at that time did not in fact build proper houses for the people. They just dumped them in Badia, and the people, faced with the need to survive, began to build their own houses as they could afford. That's how Badia came to be. And the federal government of Nigeria has continued to recognize their stay on that land. Evidence for that you will see in 2005. The Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, under Mr. Oshomo, who was minister at the time, actually appointed and gave a consultancy to Bumi Ajayi of Molaj to design an urban renewal program for Badia. Now, the only reason the federal government has not begun to implement that is because the LMDGP, the Lagos Metropolitan Development and Governance Project, a $200 million of the World Bank, is also carrying on urban upgrading in Badia. So they decided to wait and see, so they don't reinvent the wheel and duplicate efforts on that land. So the federal government continues to recognize the stay of these residents on the land. So that's the history. That's how they came to be there. Now, it is not true that they were moved there temporarily. The federal government intended to resettle them on that land, because otherwise, what was the plan? There was no other plan except that movement, that relocation to that land. So it wasn't temporary. They were not issued with CFO, quite all right, but they got permits by the federal government that has continued to recognize them.
Would you say that the land belonged to the federal government or Lagos State government?
The federal government. The land was acquired in 1929
by the federal government.
Okay. For the benefit of the Nigeria Railway Corporation. Now, as you know, there's a rail line that runs through the community.
That route, yes.
And it was built for purpose of the rail line and also for future expansion. But when that demolition became necessary in 1973, the federal government thought it expedient to move them there because it was their land. They didn't want to relocate them on Lagos State government land or on private land. They moved them to their own land. So, technically speaking, only the federal government, quite frankly, will be the legitimate authority to interfere with their use of that land.
Let's get this very clear.
Sure.
We believe that at a certain point in our lives, land belonged to the state. So I'm not sure it is possible for federal government to own land in Lagos State. But let me clarify that with the Commissioner. Commissioner, is that possible for the federal government to own land in Lagos State?
Well, it's possible if the state government had given the land to the federal government.
Okay.
But that is not the situation in this case.
What is the
The
situation?
state government did not give that land to the federal government.
So the land belongs to the state government.
Okay. So federal government now had resettled people onto a piece of land that belonged to Lagos.
So Lagos State government temporarily.
Okay. So what did the state do regarding this Metropolitan Development and Governance project to make sure that the people left that location?
I think.
Can I
Yes.
give a little bit of background? First is that I was privileged to be part of the consultancy team that worked in 2005 on what was then called Badia East, when the land was thought to belong to the federal government. Now, why didn't that plan get implemented? It's not true to say that it's the LMDGP, because the LMDGP came much later. At the point that we arrived at a development plan, I have in my laptop the report that we had then of 477 structures, predominantly plank structures that were in Badia. I have pictures of what Badia is. Now, the people themselves, knowing that by the time these things are cleared, they are not likely to come back for whatever fear or not they had, said that they should leave them the way they are. Mrs. Oshobo the federal government just didn't go to start an urban renewal program. It was as a result of a protest of the people because of the flooding they had experienced. And you can't have that kind of situation and not have flooding. There was a demolition, a removal of part of the slum areas in 2005. And after that program failed, the 2005 plan was not implemented. As a consultant, I got invited by the Lagos State government in 2008 to look into the same area again. And it is important to note that when the governor met the people on Sunday 26th April 2009, it was the governor that said, okay, as we embark on this renewal program, can we first carve out about 5 hectares to resettle the people, so that as we take part of the land to develop, to showcase what the place is supposed to be, we also resettle them in a good area. That was the beginning of that program. It was on that visit that the governor said, can we go to Cairo Market in Oshodi, and looking at that model, develop a 1,000 stall market for the Badia environment, so that we can mop up traders who are along the rail line and along Fadaini Street, which is the main axis within that environment. So that was the basis. That's where we are coming from. And it is also not true to say that Badia was demolished. I need to see the picture of what was cleared, before it was cleared. I have a picture of what was there. We have the satellite imagery of what the place looked like. You can decipher from a satellite imagery what are buildings and what are slum areas and what are shanties. So the government had a plan, because we have the layout here. The government had a plan to put 21 blocks of buildings. And rather than clear at once, we chose to do a phased clearing.
Okay.
And
how much of that has been done now, and how many people have been relocated?
what we cleared was the shanty area. We cleared the refuse area. I can show you. The picture is there.
Okay.
That one.
This.
Yes.
You clear the shanty area, which is supposed
I
to
would
be
just call it
almost
No,
Park
just
like
look
a
at that place
refuse
and
dump.
tell me
Yes,
how
I'll
many
call it
buildings you
parking
can see
area.
there.
This.
Yes. And then I'll show you another one from the bridge.
Were there people
Okay.
living in that particular shanty area?
There might be people there, but the question is,
There might be.
yes,
Meaning that your department.
they were not
and
supposed to be
department of-
living there, sir.
No, there might be.
Yes.
Wherever human beings live,
Yes.
we have to look after those human beings, no matter
Well,
what.
this
they
picture
say.
looks to me like just a refuse dump.
Yeah, but then
Please,
the
can I
government.
That,
the-
that
but-
is
but-
predominantly
Well,
what it
let me
is.
just, let me add to
That
what you
is
just said.
predominantly what it is.
Yes.
And the question, sir, about people living,
Yes.
because one of the things I told them, I observed they said we're in a democratic era. And one of the tenets of democracy is rule of law.
Okay.
Two things will restrain the government from clearing or removing a building. One is proof of a right to that land. Two is permit to put up a structure. Except we are encouraging illegality. Those are two basic things.